Sahana bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We are on the 9th chapter of the book. How do you know what you know? I don't think everybody is. What we have been studying is that there is higher knowledge and there is lower knowledge. And the higher and lower is relative. What is lower from one stage is higher from another stage. So there's no fixed point which is higher or lower. It's relative to what you are talking about. Now, based on where you are talking, knowledge will apply. This is a very important aspect of knowledge to know, because usually there's a concept of a static sense of what is right and what is wrong. What is right and what is wrong differs based on where you are talking from. So the advantage of getting the higher knowledge is that the higher the knowledge we strive to get, the more what?
All pervasive it is?
Huh?
All pervasive it is?
Correct. The more it lights up, the higher it rises, the bigger the area you're able to see because of it. So what do you mean by higher knowledge? That which amalgamates more and more into it. So the rise in the level gives clarity over a wider arena. Motita, are you new to the class?
No, Janki, this is Monisha. I was trying very hard to change my name.
Okay.
I used to be in class and then you've changed it to a Friday. So I'm not at school here in New York. So I said I'll join in. So I'm trying very hard to change this. This is my pet name and I'm trying hard to change this ridiculous name. But you know me from earlier.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. No, just wondering whether I need to do any further explanation, because if you come first day and we
No.
more knowledge.
No, this is Monisha. I've been.
All right, good. So everybody's clear up to this point. Remember, we studied last the example of the girl who had learned to save from her pocket money when she was 5 years old. So later on, it becomes so much easier to be able to do this. Because if you have learned this idea, you'll never have a financial issue, because you'll always cut your coat according to your cloth. The reason we have financial issues is because we don't do that. It's really that simple. And unfortunately, there's a lot of education that tells us we should spend more than we have. And the most common and typical example of that is the belief that a business grows only by taking loans. So you can grow only if you take loans. So they educate you like that. They tell you that, and then never know when you're going to fall on your face. So we are able to handle our issues in life the moment we understand the higher principles involved. Okay, so now we can keep on raising the principle. What is the principle we've studied so far? That if you save money, you will not have financial troubles. If every time you got some money, whatever money you got, you saved part of it, just as a routine. You never even thought about it because it became such a what should I say, matter of fact thing. You got a birthday present of 1,000 rupees, you saved, let us say, 100 rupees. You got a salary of 1 lakh, you saved 10-20,000. It just becomes a instinctive, normal, everyday thing, like how you don't think about you have to brush your teeth or do your exercises, just an everyday thing, right? So now, if you learn a principle like this, your financial life will be sorted, at least as far as this is concerned. Now, this is where we were, right? What did we do? So now, did we do how to heighten that principle or not? This is where we stopped, right? Page 228. Is this where we were? Mahesh, haven't we finished this example?
I think the little girl story was not covered. We finished this paragraph, but the little girl story was
I
where we
see.
stopped.
Okay, all right. I thought we finished. Okay, so higher knowledge is the knowledge of principles. And once you get the higher knowledge, that entire lower area is covered. Okay, this is very different from what to do if something happens. Right? You can say, oh, my mother-in-law is treating me so badly. What should I do? And ask for advice. Okay, so that's one way of handling. The other way of handling it is say, okay, let me understand how human relationships work. And once you understand that, you don't have any questions reference to any aspect of it. Okay, so that example was given from physics. E is equal to mc squared. You got that much in your head, how many issues on physics you can deal with. So far, so good, right, everyone? Anyone has a question up to this point? A little girl was given 5 paisa. Oh, yeah, Rishma is saying. A little girl was given 5 paisa as pocket money to go to school. Her brother, who was 12 years older, motivated her to save as much from that as she could. Every day, she would give him a part of her 5 paisa. He would put it in a box and let her count it every now and then. It was such a game that she would often give him even 4 paisa. One day, her savings totaled the stupendous amount of rupees 10. Excited, they all trudged to the bank to open an account and deposit money. Boy, did she feel all grown up and important. Her father then told her that saving is no good if one does not invest. So she learned the next step. The little girl went on to ashram life as a growing adult. Money was always in short supply, as she did not charge people for teaching them Vedanta, but depended on voluntary contributions. Not a method designed to make one a millionaire. However, the early lessons were not forgotten, and she saved a major chunk of whatever she got. Often, that meant walking instead of taking the local bus, making certain choices in food, entertainment, everything. But never did she feel particularly deprived. And slowly, she gained the security that, should there be an emergency, she could easily fend for herself financially. Later, she could help others too. If every single human child were taught this lesson, how many financial ills could be prevented? It's not very complicated. but it prevents a lot of complications. The power of such principles is immense if only we knew how to harness this power. Would we not just solve all our human problems if we knew this basic, oh so easy principles? It's a big sentence, no? Would we not just solve all our human problems if we knew these basic, oh so easy principles? If we take the girl's example itself, we can develop the knowledge one step further. The child had learned not only the proper use of money, but another important principle: deferred enjoyments. We treat enjoyment as if it were an emergency situation to be done right now. But there may be pleasure and profit in deferring the enjoyment. If we all learned that, we would stem all human problems from their very root, be they obesity or poverty, failure, crime. So you see the transition. You learn principle one. What was the first principle? Save what you, whatever you get, save a little bit. But from that you can derive another principle. Which is the next principle you can derive?
Differing enjoyments.
Deferred enjoyments. If you can do this, if you can take this next step, now you've taken the principle even higher. So every time we move it up, it becomes applicable to that many more cases. And once you move it up like that, the more you're able to move it up, the more human problems are solved. Now you see why we want to create people who know that. The more you know this, the more you'll be able to deal with everything. I mean, more than deal with it, prevent everything. Life can be extremely smooth and uncomplicated if only we learn the simple art of preventing an issue.
I just have a question on the last line of this paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the obesity or poverty, but the failure or crime, I kind of was uncertain. So if you could please explain that, just the...
So failure comes because we are not doing something which we should be doing, or we are anticipating something that we should not be anticipating. For instance, suppose I plant a mango seed. Now, when I plant the mango seed, I must know that if I take care of it, if I plant it properly, I must know the right way of doing this, okay? Which is the soil. Suppose I try and plant a mango seed in British Columbia. Will it grow over there? Will an Alfonso grow over there? No, that poor fellow will freeze to death. So that's not happening. So I must find the right place to plant it. I must plant it in the right season. I have 100 things that I should know about. Now, in most of our cases, we know these things because those are our fields. Then why don't we implement them? Because at some stage, something else seemed more enjoyable, whatever that may be. It could be losing your temper. It could be anything. But it seemed that we could not defer in enjoyment, and hence we could not do the actions that were required to be done. That's the first cause of failure. The second cause of failure, this much is clear, the first cause of failure? The second cause of failure is, now I have done all the right things. I've found the right place, I've planted the right seed, I've watered it correctly, I've done everything. Okay, and a year has passed. And I say, no mangoes. I have failed. Because I do not know that for a mango tree to sprout and come to the stage where it will give mangoes is going to take at least 5 years. So if I'm unaware of this, for the first 5 years, I'm going to keep on telling myself and everybody else how I'm failing. But I'm not really failing. So failure comes because of a deferred enjoyment or deferred enjoyment, so you did the wrong action, or you did not take the trouble to learn the full thing properly. Now crime. So far, so good. Are we okay so far, Rosie?
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Now for crime. Crime is nothing but the inability to defer enjoyments. Now, I want a lot of money. I want to be a billionaire. So how will I become a billionaire? I work hard, I study, I work hard. All this is going to take too long. What's an easier way for me to do this? I come and steal from you. That's crime. So when I'm not willing to defer my enjoyments, what happens is crime. When I'm angry with you, okay? The only way I know how to deal with that anger, most of us don't know how to deal with our own emotions. So when I don't know how to deal with that anger or frustration or whatever it is, I come and harm you. That's crime. Because that's the easy way for me, right? You said something to me, so I got mad at you. Or, I want to have a relationship with somebody. That person didn't want to have a relationship with me, so I went and threw acid on that person's face. All this is crime. Why? Because I'm not able to defer my enjoyments. I hope you're not taking enjoyment as in actually enjoying something. What it means is you're not able to deal with whatever you're going through in the right way.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. We begin by learning what we want to know. That means why do you go to learn a subject? You want to know about that particular subject. So we begin by learning what we want to know. That may lead us on to learn what we did not originally mean to learn. Right? So you may have said, I want to study BCom. And then you went to study BCom. Now there is, at least in the new education policy, whether you do BCom or whatever, they're going to make you learn about Indian knowledge systems or values or something. Now you didn't want to learn that. But because it was part of that curriculum, you learned it. Right? So sometimes when we go to learn something which we want to learn, or a common example is also YouTube. You went to YouTube to listen to some song which you wanted to listen to. Then what happened? Then YouTube gave you some other options. So you started listening to those songs. Then because you were listening to that, it gave you some other options. So sometimes you go to learn X, but that leads you on to learning Y. So here's an example of that. So we begin learning by learning what we want to know. That may lead us on to learn what we did not originally mean to learn. Here's an example of that. Looking good is a matter of keen interest to the mind of every teenager. As we begin to educate ourselves on it, we realize that beauty is not skin deep. One can make the complexion look good by applying makeup. But one can improve the skin itself by the use of face masks, etc. Or eat healthy so that the skin is nourished. But the skin being good and the personality not being so is hardly attractive. So therefore, see where he or she started. He said, I want to look good. So I'll look good, my face should look good. So what'll I do? I put on makeup. Then I realized, no, my skin itself can be good. So you see, the knowledge is becoming a little more introverted. So how do you make my skin look good? Okay, I put some mask or whatever, right? My skin becomes good. But then your skin will shine and glow only if your diet is okay. So then you learn about how to eat healthy food. Okay, and then now your face is very pretty, but still nobody wants to talk to you. because nobody can handle your nature. So now what will you do? You start understanding about how to handle your nature. Beauty includes a good nature that further inculcates the qualities of intellect too, like dignity and propriety. So when you want to be a good person, what will you say? Okay, how to be a good person? I should be very loving to everybody. You start by saying that. Then you realize that's simply not enough. You need the qualities of the intellect, like dignity, propriety. If you're not poised, you can be very loving and people will still run away from you. So every aspect that you learn can take you to learn something more. Thus, we can arrive at developing a good intellect from wanting a good skill. I mean, you could do that. Most people don't do that. But if you go on with whatever it is you want, you will reach the higher principle. But instead of going to principles in our quest for knowledge, we are busily collecting data. Endless data and better machines to store and classify data. But does data give knowledge? And now if we have to write the book, we'll have to have better AI to store and classify. And Mahesh's best friend, Ch9.3, we'll have to include that also in this. By knowing the general law and the specifics of the particular case, one can make predictions. Okay, so this is application. Once you know a principle, you'll have to apply it to a particular case, right? And if you get that correct, then how do you know that you got it correct? You can make a prediction. Like, suppose you understood correctly that Mahesh is a great fan of Ch9.3. Then you can make a prediction. If I say something about Ch9.3, Mahesh is bound to wake up and listen. And if I say too much, he's bound to say something. Okay, so if I am right in my understanding, then the prediction will come out true. No, Mahesh, please don't say anything. Just an example. So every time I know, I understand something, I can tell what is going to happen because I've understood it. If I understand my spouse, if I understand my child, I understand what is going to happen. I'm not surprised by the behavior of people. Completely understand it. So yes, you can easily predict this. Somehow that parcel will not reach that person, whoever you have told him to give it to. It's very easy prediction. Suppose we know that Jay is very non-punctual. Now, poor fellow, he's always there in class in time, but let us say he's not a punctual person. So we tell him come at 5 o'clock. Then we can predict he will be there at 6 o'clock. I used to have a music teacher like that. He told him, he would say, I'm coming on Saturday at 10 o'clock. Saturday at 10 o'clock, he'll come on Monday at 5 o'clock in the evening. But you know, when he says Saturday 10 o'clock, it means Monday 5 o'clock. So you don't wait for him on Saturday 10 o'clock because you know this is not happening. He had no concept of time. I never, he was fantastic in music, but his concept of time was zero. I don't think he knew how to read a clock. Total. There's no correlation between what time he thinks he's coming and what time he actually lands on. So every time you understand something, how do you know you've understood it? You can make a prediction. By knowing the general law and specifics of the particular case, one can make predictions. There's not predictions, please, like, you know, oh, my star is on whatever, my Rahu is in Ketu or something like that. Not like that. It's just that you've understood something. It's not a prediction as in, oh, this horse is going to win the race, not something like that. Prediction only in the everyday business of living. For instance, if you live in India, or at least if you live in Mumbai, you know that the staff will not come to work at least 2 or 3 days a month. You already know this. You may not know which day they will not come, but you know that they will not come for 2 or 3 days. This is standard. This is normal. There is nothing to get worked up about. You know that I don't know what day she will not come, but I do know that she will not come. So I'm well prepared for this. Isn't it all Mumbaikars? Am I not correct? No Mumbaikars. What is it like in Bangalore? All Mumbaikars.
All over India, it's the same situation then.
Same situation. So every time, 3 times a month, are you going to get upset and worked up about it? You know, this is what happens. You have the option of changing your staff. What happened? Some of those staff will be from 3 to 2. Some of them will be 3 to 4. I had one lady who would disappear for days on end. And then she'd come back with some long story about what happened. And so regularly this happened that I'd got completely used to this. It was just normal life when she didn't land up. Okay, another few days she's not coming. But once you've got it, it doesn't bother. Okay, so you are already well prepared. When the lady doesn't come, X, Y, Z will automatically come into action. And this will happen 3 times a month. By knowing the general law and the specifics of a particular case, one can make predictions. But the whole emphasis is on knowing just the particular facts. It does not get woven into a tapestry, and one cannot see the whole picture. Microscopic knowledge turns into myopic knowledge.
Could you please explain that last line? Microscopic knowledge, the myopic. I was trying to understand if it's minute things or microscopic.
Yeah,
Just
you're
the last-
you're collecting all the facts of the case. So you're not able to make a cohesive picture out of it. So you have all the stuff that you know, but it's not helping you execute whatever it is you're supposed to execute. And this is the terrible tragedy of today's knowledge. How much knowledge is available to us? Okay, at the click of a button, we can know a million things. I don't know if you ask Ch9.3, how do you deal with your wife? I should do that, right? How do you deal with your wife? Then I suppose Ch9.3 will come up with some answer. How are you supposed to deal with it? Now, every piece of information you can get in today's world, like anything, you want to build a rocket, go online, you'll find out how to do it. You can do anything in the world. All the information is available. You know, they said information is happiness, information is freedom, knowledge is happiness, knowledge is freedom, knowledge is power. So where is that freedom, and where is that power, and where is that happiness? Everybody should have it because they all have access to all the knowledge. But it's not happening because we are not able to understand that the particular facts, when not woven into a tapestry by the principle, don't light our way at all. So myopic knowledge means you can only see one step ahead of you. You can't see further. And so you're taking wrong decisions. Every time there's a fabulous failure, such as the financial meltdown in the US some time ago, a few years ago, all the closing of all these banks, and these fantastic failures, like large scale failures. What is happening here? Somebody at the helm of affairs has got this myopic knowledge. Means they can see 2 steps ahead. I will do all these things and then I will make so much money, or the company will make money, or whatever. They see 2 steps ahead and they're not able to see that 10 steps ahead. You are just walking into a crazy thing. I mean, banks do that. Countries do that. Countries on the verge of collapse. I don't know when Putin decided to invade or whatever, do whatever he calls it. He doesn't call it invade, he calls it special operation. When he decides to have a special operation in Ukraine, does he know what this entails? What is going to come out of it? When Zelensky decides to do whatever he did before this special operation took place, did he know what was going to come out of it? We see 2 steps ahead. That's called myopic knowledge. We don't see ahead. I'm sure Putin thought he'd get in and out of Ukraine. 1 month, he's done. He's dealt with this problem. 1 year later, it's the same situation. Is that clear? So when you only go by facts, but you do not have principles that amalgamate them, you can only see very close to you. You can't see further. So you head into trouble.
Thank you.
When we know the whole picture, we know what is applicable where. This is an incredibly important part of knowledge. To know what is applicable where. There's a beautiful verse in Niti Shatakam. It says, Dhairyam. Dhairyam means fortitude. So it keeps telling you what to do when. Unlike, one thing is to say all these qualities, right? It's very good to have fortitude. It's very good to have eloquence. It's very good to have a host of things. It's very nice to have. But it does a very interesting thing, separate from the others, which is that it tells you dhairyam, fortitude, in troubles, eloquence in a sabha. Sabha means in a gathering of thinkers. Then your eloquence is any good. Generosity in victory. So if you interchange all this, in victory you are eloquent, then you're messing stuff up. So you have to know what is applicable where. If you don't understand that, all the best virtue becomes a mess. When we know the whole picture, we know what is applicable where. In the black hole, physics as we know it collapses. We need a new physics. Similarly, in Vedanta, the laws as we know them collapse in the case of a person who has attained enlightenment. Right? Whatever knowledge we have about how to live in this world, none of it is applicable to a person of enlightenment. You can't apply this on him. Abraham Lincoln was a moderate when it came to the freedom of the slaves. He was not battling for total freedom. I don't know if you're aware of this piece of history, but initially, Abraham Lincoln was not. Later on, it became like complete abolishment of slavery, right? But actually, Abraham Lincoln was a moderate when it came to the freedom of the slaves. He was not for total abolishment. Of course, later on, life developed, but earlier. Mahatma Gandhi, similarly, was not a fervent exponent of total independence for India. When we read such facts in history, it seems quite surprising until we remember the context. What can seem shocking in retrospect can actually seem sensible at that time, and it is. Krishna is often criticized for his role in the Mahabharata. He's supposed to be Swayam Narayana, God himself. Then how can he impel the Pandavas to do wrong? To kill the unarmed Krishna, to lie to Drona, to kill the unarmed Karna, to lie to Drona. It seems wrong until one cognizes the context. The war was against desperados who would stop at nothing. One cannot fight the adharmic with dharma. Take an example. Let us say that robbers are in their getaway car. The police are giving chase. The robbers come to a red signal. They jump it. Now, what about the police who are giving chase? Should they stop at the signal? Should they follow the rules they are meant to uphold and allow the miscreants to escape? So, here are the police. They are upholding the rules. But when they are going to be chasing a miscreant, a criminal, they themselves will break the rules. And we will allow that, right? We think, of course, that's correct. So, what is applicable where will be known only when the principle is clear. Otherwise, what happens is you keep to the law, but you kill its spirit. Have to know what is applicable where. Consider the women's rights movement.
Janki ji, 1 minute.
Yeah.
Janki ji, just now you said this law of physics is not applicable to a self-realized person.
No. Law of physics, as we know it, is not applicable in the black hole. The laws break down, right? In the black hole.
Okay. Now, but you said no, sir, just now you said about self-realized person.
Yeah, the laws of Vedanta are not applicable to a self-realized person. Law of physics are applicable to him. He's on this planet still.
Okay. Okay, no problem.
Are you all clear with this? I mean, I don't know. Everyone is so quiet. I'm so Buddha-like. I don't know whether it is all clear. Everything is clear. Anybody has any problem with this so far? Because it's sort of a stretch to sort of understand these ideas. So if it's okay, great, Mommy.
Janki ji, laws of Vedantas are not applicable to self-realized person. Can you explain?
They're not applicable in the sense that when you say that you should be more unselfish, well, that's not applicable to him, right? He's already a selfless person, but you're going to tell him to be selfless. You should work towards self-realization, right? But he's already self-realized now. Why should he work towards self-realization? You must do karma bhakti jnana, but he doesn't need to do any karma bhakti jnana because he's realized the self. Oh, if you're self-realized, you should be meditating. But why will he meditate? Meditation is to attain self-realization. He has attained self-realization. Why should he meditate? So everything that we have, all these concepts that he should do this or he should do that, they're all irrelevant for him.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Consider okay, so these are just various things that seem contradictory, but you understand them because you understand the full picture. Consider the women's rights movements. Decades ago, it was considered a compliment to say, her husband is so good, he lets her express her opinions and also go to work. Can remove this thing, Mahesh? Okay, suppose today, okay, some husband were to say, or somebody were to say, oh, he's such a good husband, he lets his wife go to work. What will you say?
Who is he to allow that?
Who is he to allow her? Correct. What do you
No,
mean?
he's a liberated
Go to work?
husband.
Huh?
He's liberated husband.
No, it's like, oh, I don't need your permission. You're not giving me permission. I don't need your permission to go to work. Okay, this is the Marsh. We are an older generation. Listen to Reshma. If her husband says, I will give you permission to work, or a fiance says, I will give you permission to work, she'll walk out on him. Who are you to give me permission or not give me permission? So today, women will say, please, hello, I am in charge of my own personality. Why or not are you giving me permission or not giving me permission? I'm not asking for your permission. That would be today's state. But 50 years ago, it was considered, oh, what a liberating husband, what a nice husband. He lets his wife go to work. So today, if you talk like that, people will say, oh, mad or something. But why is that? Remember the context. Always context. In the past, where women were treated very, very badly, it was a very good thing to treat them well. Now we don't have this issue anymore. 9 out of 10 women do not have this problem. So it's like the wife never says, right? I let my husband go to work. You can't say that. So man also cannot say, I let my wife go to work. So please, the point that is being made here is what is good in context A will not be good in context B. Momita just saw a docu-series called How to Get Rich, where the working wife refused to give her stay-at-home husband strict allowance. What? Just saw a docu-series.
Sorry, that came out wrong. Actually, what I meant to say is the whole thing is reversed now, where the working wife has a stay-at-home husband who takes care of the kids, and they have financial fights because she doesn't understand why she should give him money for anything other than what is strictly needed. Whereas if the gender roles were reversed, this would be unthinkable today.
Very good. Yes. So what seems something in one context will become something else in some other context. Yes, correct. So at least you got the point, Mommy. Everybody else has got the point, right?
Jankiji, still not many women work in Maharashtra, for instance, compared to Kerala.
Marge, don't get involved in the example. The only point over here is that in a context, something becomes good, and in another context, that same thing becomes bad.
Okay.
Okay, shall we continue? So, consider the women's rights movement. Decades ago, it was considered a compliment to say, her husband is so good, he lets her express her opinions and also go to work. Women today would be appalled to think that their husbands give them permission to do or say anything. Today, if a man thinks so, he will be considered a terrible husband. The same thing which was a good quality 50 years ago will be considered a bad quality today. What is self-respect and what is ego? When a person is clingy and becomes a doormat in a relationship, we tell that person, don't you have any self-respect? Why are you so subservient to that person? Have some self-respect. On the other hand, if one refuses to apologize in any situation, we may say, let go your ego. Why let your ego ruin a relationship? So it is merely the context that determines whether it is ego or self-respect. What is good in one context is not good in another. In fact, even if one had thought through something yesterday and reached a correct conclusion, that conclusion may not be correct for today. Yesterday's truths may be today's lies. Just think about it, right? Now, in fact, it's very easy to understand this concept because we've gone through very dramatic change of context, right? So take COVID, for instance. It was so dramatic that it's easy to see this. Pre-COVID, we had some beliefs. During COVID, we had another set of beliefs. And now post-COVID, we have a third set of beliefs, right? So how did we look at things pre-COVID? We would tell people, why are you staying in the house all the time? You must go out. Then during COVID, what did we say? We said, don't go out, stay at home. People will say, make up your mind, am I supposed to go out or am I supposed to stay at home? But do you remember pre-COVID how much we would tell everybody, you must go out, you must go out for a walk, you must go out of the house, all that stuff. In a flash of a moment became wrong. And then these years of COVID came and suddenly we all had to be at home. And now COVID is gone. Or well, at least somewhat gone. Or I don't know what is the correct condition. I'm making a comment on that. We have different rules. Though I must say it's very good now that they don't at least test us every time you're flying with that horrible COVID swab thing. At least that is a good thing that has happened. So context changes, right and wrong changes. That's the moral of the story. Now, how do you know which to change and which not to change? You will know if you know the principle. Yes, maybe Deepraj. Maybe he's taking a nap. Maybe he's coming up with some. Maybe instead of taking a nap, he has gone into labor pains and is coming up with some new baby of his. We don't know what he is up to. But at the moment, at least we are all going around the place fairly okay. See now, look where Rosie is gone. She seems to have gone to some very pretty place somewhere. Probably Greece, I don't know where, but wherever she's gone, it's a very pretty place. Now each one is going wherever they are going. And let's continue. So is this clear, everyone? I mean, I can't see anybody's face. And a topic like knowledge to deal with. Firstly, I need to know whether you're awake or not. That is the first question. And if I know that you're awake, then I can ask. If you were awake, then did any of this make sense? Or you are so fast asleep, you can't tell me. Because knowledge is the most difficult. The concept of knowledge itself is the most difficult one to get. And it's sometimes too much of a struggle, so we give it up. So far, so good, everybody. At least give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down so that at least I know you're awake. Okay. All right. The rest of y'all are not yet awake. Don't blame you. Knowledge is a little frightening thing. Okay, thank you. All right. We won't wake up the people who are asleep. Like Swamiji says, this knowledge is of great benefit. Those who study it, learn it. Those who don't study it, sleep very well. So both ways, big benefit. Right. Shall we go on to the next topic? Gaining knowledge versus effacing ignorance. While it might seem that gaining of knowledge and the effacing of ignorance is one and the same thing, it is not necessarily so. Do you remember what we had studied about ignorance? Ignorance means ignorance of the self. You remember we spoke about how your concepts depend upon your distance from the self. You all remember that? Where did we study it now? Did we study it somewhere? Did we study it somewhere?
Last chapter, last part, I think, page number.
Potential, the weight of the unknown.
Page number 216.
Yeah, 216. Right. So that ignorance of the self is what makes you, the consequence of the degree of the ignorance of the self is what makes you see things in the way you do. So Vedanta is not actually trying to gain some knowledge. but to remove that distance to the self, to efface the ignorance of the self, as a consequence of which you become a clear thinker. It's a big difference from educating people and I don't know what, diseducating them. I think Vedanta is in the business of diseducating more than education. So, gaining knowledge versus effacing ignorance. While it might seem that gaining of knowledge and the effacing of ignorance is one and the same thing, it is not necessarily so. Paradoxically, in some sense, knowledge and ignorance are not opposed. If you all are not listening, all the better, because otherwise you will faint if you read this. Knowledge and ignorance are not opposed. Increase of one is not always the decrease of the other.
Could you please elaborate that last knowledge and ignorance piece, please?
Yes, it's going to elaborate it. It is a complicated concept because collection of information doesn't necessarily make us less ignorant. It is coming from the previous thing, that you've got so much information, but so does that mean now your life is any better? Oh, can't see this. Mahesh, can you move it up or whatever it is you do?
I think it's at their end. I think I can see it. Does everyone not see the last line? What can't you see?
It's visible.
Can only read the last two lines under gaining knowledge versus effacing ignorance, not the remaining of the context.
It's a local issue, I think.
Okay.
No, Mahesh, it is just that the last line is cut out. Maybe if you just reduce the font, he can read the whole paragraph. I think that's what he's referring to, that he can see the whole paragraph.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's better.
So, paradoxically, in some sense, knowledge and ignorance are not opposed. All this information that we have gathered has not reduced our ignorance. Increase of one is not the decrease of the other. In our pursuits, we erroneously focus more on gaining information and less on effacing ignorance. Gaining knowledge is often understood as the capacity to quote the books and teachers. If it was so simple, we could prescribe books and lectures and the whole world would be wise. That is, the whole world would have a ready understanding of the reality. Na ayam atma pravachanena lapyaha, na bahuna shrutena. This Atman, reality, is not obtained by discourse or lots of listening, declared the ancient Mundaka Upanishad. To get the words right, but not the inherent meaning behind them, is to hug onto the carcass and lose the spirit. It does not bestow the capacity to decide on the right action. This choice of action is necessarily based on one's own understanding of life, on understanding the laws that govern life. We seem to take for granted anything told to us, no matter how fantastic. Often, the more fantastic and fabulous an account, the more we are inclined to believe it, especially if it comes in a container labeled spiritual. Momita, you have a question?
Yes, Janki, this last line, the choice of action. Can you show that again, please? Yes, this choice of action is necessarily based on one's own understanding of life, on understanding the laws that govern life. This I didn't get.
Okay, so what is the purpose of knowledge? Eventually, knowledge is supposed to be a direction to action, right? So if all that you learned did not tell you what is to be done now, then what was the point of that knowledge?
But then I'm acquiring knowledge to be able to choose my action. So my own understanding of life means I should have the capacity to interpret the knowledge correctly.
To the extent you've understood the knowledge, to that extent you'll take the right decision. The choice of action is necessarily based on one's understanding of life. It's not saying that it should be, it's saying it has to be. Meaning, whatever, suppose, whatever, you think that it's very good to be selfish, you will be selfish. So, whatever action you choose is necessarily based on how you understand or how you perceive life.
Okay, but my understanding of life is again derived from my learning, right? So,
Yeah.
because here we are discussing the knowledge acquired, and this whole section is about how acquired knowledge does not efface ignorance.
Yeah, so you've acquired knowledge, means the knowledge that you currently have is limited. Therefore, your decision-making ability or your choice of the right action is necessarily limited. Means it's proportional, right? To your choice-making ability, meaning right choice-making ability will necessarily be proportional to your understanding of life.
Of life or of knowledge, of the knowledge that I've acquired?
Yeah, I mean, it's used synonymously here. However, your knowledge is your understanding of life, right? Of how that thing works in life. Suppose you think that by putting water in the fridge, it boils, then that's what you do.
But I have the knowledge. But since I have the knowledge, that putting water in the fridge will instead freeze it. So I would never do that. So my action will always be right because I have the knowledge.
Correct. That's exactly what it is. So based, your action will necessarily follow your knowledge.
But in this sense, it is effacing my ignorance, right?
No, it's not effacing your ignorance. It is saying that this is the current situation. Whatever is your knowledge today will determine your actions today.
Okay, so got it. Yeah.
See the previous line. It does not bestow the capacity to decide on the right action. Because you got the words, but you didn't get the meaning. And therefore, you don't know the right action. So you will do what you know. Maybe this sentence is not clear. The choice of action is necessarily based on one's understanding of life, means based on how you see it, you will do things. It is necessarily based on that.
And knowledge helps to the extent that I have correctly understood it.
No. That will be gaining knowledge. When you're correcting what you've understood, that's what gaining knowledge is. At the moment, what is it? It is X. So your actions have to follow X. When you make it X plus 2, your actions will follow X plus 2.
Okay.
So your actions will always follow your theory.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually, I think the important point here would be that just gaining words and mouthing them and not understanding the meaning is actually not real knowledge.
Yes and no. Yes, that's right. That's what the previous sentence says. And then
that's what the previous sentence says.
Yeah. Next sentence says that whatever is your knowledge, you will do that.
Yeah,
it will
that's
necessarily follow.
Yeah. So both of the sentences are independently true. And therefore, just mouthing the words will not make you do the right action, because you will do only what you understand. So if you have kind of mouthed it but not understood it, then your choice of action will not improve.
Yes. So your action will always follow what you know.
Yeah.
That's what it means, necessarily follow, but maybe that was too technical a term for sudden use in this para. Okay, so that's it for today. We'll continue next time.
Hari Om
Hariom
Janki.
Janki ji.
Thank you, Janki. Hari Om.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay,
Janki
Hari Om,
ji.
Hari Om Janki ji.
Hari Om Janki ji.
Hari Om.